I don't know how many times I watched National Geography and thought, oh my God, I want to see the wild beast migration myself. I want to see the Great Migration. I want to see the animals pouncing. I want to see that wrestling real life. I want to see the hippos in the water. And the instant I think about that, I just see the price packages that are usually right next to the safari trips. And I'm like, yeah, not really. So, however, I have been on 2 safari trips before this experience. First one being Kruger National Park in South Africa and Mole National Park in Ghana. On my way to Tanzania, I was like, definitely, I've got to do it. East African Safari, come on. It's a no-brainer. If you've decided and you're thinking, is it possible? I want to say that over the years, the travel industry and tourism has come to understand that there are different classes of clients they cater to, so that the budget segment has developed. And I was like, I hope that has reached the Tanzanian safari industry. And yes, on this episode of Across All Borders Going East, I say to you, budget safari anyone.
Wanataka kukufundisha kuwinda wakati uliwashinda. Likolo maboko, likolo maboko, wewe ni simba.
Now, before we go into which safari I did and how I did it, I want to talk about the safari scene in Tanzania. What I mean by that is that when you talk about safari in Tanzania, you're talking about 3 different circuits. The first circuit is the northern circuit. The northern circuit have parks that you've probably heard about. So we're talking about Serengeti, Ngorongoro, Tarangire, Manyara, Arusha National Park, Kilimanjaro National Park, Rubondo Island, Lake Victoria, Lake Nyasa, Lake Natron. These are the parks that are commonly grouped under the Northern Safari Circuit. Now, if we look at the Southern Safari Circuit, we're talking about Selu, we're talking about Mikumi, Ruha, Udzungwa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And then we talk about the Western Safari Circuit, we're looking at Mahale, Gombe, Katavi, and Lake Tanganyika. So you see that there are quite a number of parks you can go to in Tanzania, and they're grouped sort of in regions. So there is no hard and fast rule where you should start your safari and which ones you should go to. It's really up to you where you are and where you want to go to. Commonly, if you were doing the northern circuit, it is probable that you would start in Moshi, Arusha, or Mwanza. So in my case, since I was already heading to Arusha, I took the bus and arrived in Arusha and decided to go budget safari shopping. Let's talk about the few things you have to keep in mind if you want to do this. First question you have to ask yourself is, how much are you willing to spend? And of course, there is like the lowest, budget you can hit on a safari, and I'll come to that. How much are you willing to spend per day? Is it supposed to be a multiple days trip and park trip? Are you willing to sleep in a tent, or do you want to sleep in a room? What time of the year is it, and what parks are best for that time of the year? And of course, how much time do you have? So, and are you going with an agent, or are you organizing by yourself? Reason why I mentioned that is I went with a travel agency, but I also organized 2 safari trips myself as well.
The last day of our 3-day safari, we're going to Lake Manyara, and it is known for the tree climbing lions. So we're hoping to see a lot of that.
Now let's focus on the first part of it, the tour I did with an agent, and I'll talk about the one I organized myself. I'll talk about the pros and cons and where I think what is better for which situation. So first of all, on my organized trip, I went down to Clock Tower area in Arusha, and I kind of like visited the different travel agencies to get a feel of what was being offered. On my ride from the bus station to where I was staying the first night in Arusha, the taxi driver already told me he could offer me a safari for $160 per day. So I had a number. and it was higher than what I wanted to pay. Ideally, I was looking for something between not more than $100 a day. But I also didn't want to, reach for something that was unrealistic. So I went safari shopping in the sense that I went to different tour agencies, talked to them, try to find out what's going on. At the end of the day, I still ended up around 160 USD per day for the one organized by a tour agency, and roughly at about $100 and $120 for the one I organized by myself. So let's start from the one with the tour agency. With the tour agency, I ended up going with the package 3 days, 2 nights. In the budget safari segment, you would often be offered anywhere between 1 day to 7 days experience, with the number of nights varying according to how many days you choose. I chose 3 days, 2 nights, and for this, I would say the optimum, parks to put together are things that are close to each other and do not have a lot of driving involved inside the park itself. What I mean by this is if you chose Serengeti on a 3 days, 2 nights, then it would be best to combine it with one other park and not 2 others, because you drive a lot through Serengeti. At least that's what I was told. And being that I would love to enjoy the wildlife in Serengeti, I chose not to do Serengeti this time. And I am also saving that for the Great Migration, which is a different timing of the year. I went in November. So for my safari, 3 days, 2 nights, I chose Ngorongoro, Manyara, Tarangire. It was pick up in Arusha, drop off in Arusha, and we were going to sleep in the Jambu Lodge. The itinerary actually looked like this. It was supposed to be start off from Arusha, go to Manyara, do the game drive, do lunch, do another game drive, and then head off to the lodge. And then the next day Ngorongoro, and then we would visit a Maasai village, and then go back to the lodge, and then the next day Tarangire, and then we would come back to Arusha. It's not always a given that everyone in your group safari would have the same itinerary with you, and which was the case I had. We had 3 people in our group. We were 6, a group of 6, that actually paid for 2 days, 1 night, and they wanted to see Tarangire and Ngorongoro, meaning our schedule got changed. It got moved to Tarangire first and Ngorongoro and Manyara last. So that's the way I'm going to tell you about the parks. So we started off in Arusha. We went to Shoppers to do the last minute shopping, and then headed off to Tarangire. I love Tarangire because in Tarangire we had literally an all-rounder experience. We saw everything there was to see. Elephants, oh my god, the elephant crossing was amazing. Giraffes, we saw cheetah, we saw ostriches, different bird life, and we also saw lions that had just, had their meal and were chilling with their food right next to them. So that was really cool. Wildlife and the wildlife sighting in Tarangire, plus the landscape, was absolutely amazing. I can totally recommend Tarangire. I loved it. After that, we went to the lodge. The lodge itself, Jambu Lodge, it's not super new, but it's well maintained and the people are nice, the food is good. We had dinner there, and then the next day we made our way to Ngorongoro. I absolutely loved Ngorongoro, and if I had to change something, I would do 2 days and 1 night in a lodge in Ngorongoro. I found the landscape in Ngorongoro absolutely amazing, and it had all the wildlife, different cats, the wild beasts, everything you would want to see in a national park was in Ngorongoro. Only Ngorongoro is not a national park, it's a conservation area, meaning there are people living in it, and you have a Maasai tribe that live in it, and you have the opportunity to have an experience with them if you organize that separately. So that was Ngorongoro, and I loved the landscape. The crater is absolutely amazing because it has it's the most densely populated area when it comes to animals in Africa, and you see it. It's just amazing. After Ngorongoro, we went to the Maasai village experience. It was interesting. We had the chief explain everything. They danced with us. We saw the village. They made fire. Saw the school. Went to the, like the art marketplace where you could buy trinkets. So it was a good experience to have. After that, we made our way back to the lodge. On that day, we kind of got smaller, the group, because some people left to go back. And then the last day we had Manyara. Manyara is home to tree climbing lions, and it held true to this USP. However, I must say that it was the poorest wildlife sighting on the 3 days. Some people say because you're supposed to do Manyara in the evening and we started in the daytime. And when we were leaving, a lot of cars were just coming, so go figure, it might be it. Anyway, we saw tree climbing lions, we saw hippos, we saw a couple of giraffes, but it was pretty much more quieter than the others. But it had an amazing landscape. Manyara is beautiful. The landscape is amazing. The lake and, you know, that experience, and loads of baboons. So Manyara was not my least favorite, but least exciting, I would say, except for the tree climbing lions. That was like, wow. And having watched them for like an hour because they were doing, it was cool. We had a National Geographic moment in Manyara because these two lions, one of them ran after a warthog family. I couldn't get that on camera. It was just too quick. I mean, like, it was faster than I could blink, but it was a cool thing to see. So that was it with the safari organized by a travel agency. I went with Safari Soul Tours. Our guide was amazing, very experienced, and it was a good experience. But like I said, the price point was 160, and on those kind of safari, depending on the room and the lodge you take, it ranges from 160 to about 190 per day. On my self-organized safaris, like I said, we were looking at between $100 to $130. Now, reason being, if you are going alone or if you're sharing the cost with other people. For Arusha National Park, I shared with people, so it brought the price point lower than when I did it by myself. Now, what do you have to consider if you want to self-organize a safari trip? First of all, the vehicle. Do you have a vehicle? Are you the driver? That's a huge thing, because if you don't have a vehicle and you're not the driver, you need to pay for the vehicle and you need to pay for the driver, right? I mean, if the vehicle comes with the driver, then yeah, it's one cost, but you also need to pay for the driver to get into the park and for the vehicle to get into the park. So that's a cost you have to keep in mind. You have to pay for yourself. In some parks, you don't need the ranger. They'll give you a map and you can go find your way around. That was the offer I had in Katavi. But if you want a ranger, you've got to pay for the ranger. If you're going to do a walking safari, you're going to have to pay for the walking safari. There are 2 segments, 3 hours or more than 3 hours. And then you're going to have to pay for a ranger that goes with you on the walking safari, even though you can't go on the walking safari by yourself. But so those are the costs you have to keep in mind. So for Arusha National Park, in the vehicle in question, we used a Noah. A Noah is like a van. There are pros and cons of using the Noah. Noah is definitely way cheaper than a safari vehicle, and I have to say I did miss having a safari vehicle, but I also find that the price point for a safari vehicle sometimes is just way too much, or makes more sense if you're like 5 or 6 people, so you split the cost and it's not too high. But I do, however, recommend trying to get those number of people and getting a safari vehicle, because the experience is different. In Arusha National Park, we did the walking safari. It was beautiful, and it's home to a lot of giraffes. It's known for giraffes, and we had beautiful interaction and sceneries with the giraffes. So that was good. I'm happy I didn't have to pay $300 and something, which is the price you would see for the day trips for the Arusha National Park if you checked online. So for Katavi was more like a thing where I heard you can see a lot of hippos there, you can see them outside the water, and I hadn't seen enough hippos outside of the water and I wanted to see them. And I said, look, ideally I don't want to spend more than $100 in this. I was back to my $100. I could have made the $100 cut if I didn't take the ranger, because the ranger was an extra $23. I got a car to take me on the safari and take me to the city where I was staying, which was in Panda, for $50, and the park fees were like $73, so like $123 at the end of the day. And I went with a car similar to the Noah. Again, in Katavi, having a 4x4 would have been a lot better to be able to go on the different routes and to do see more animals than if you just had to keep to a certain route because of the car. But because there was a lake or a pond area where all of a lot of the hippos were, and it was accessible by the car, it was okay for me because that's what I really wanted to see. I like Katavi because it's not that popular and you don't have a lot of people, so you might have more intimate experience with the animals if you are in the right vehicle. So I did enjoy myself organized safaris, and it was at a price point that I was okay with. But if I did it again, I would A, look for more people, B, I would go with a 4x4, like a safari car, and I would only do it on day trips or multiple trips if I am staying in one park for longer. So in my opinion, when it comes to budget safaris, what is better? I don't think there's any better or worse, but what I can say is multiple day trips that visit multiple parks are best organized by travel agents or tour groups, in my opinion, because I know the hassle I go through to find hotels in the different places I've been to in Tanzania. I have to read a lot of reviews. I have to check if it's good. I have to check about my transport and all of that. So if I'm going to go to different parks, I'm going to move about, then I want you to worry about that for me. But if I'm just going to a specific park and I'm going to stay in there for a couple of days and I can get a car organized and I can split that cost, I would self-organize it myself and also take a ranger. So I'm not undermining the value of a guide. I'm just saying that there are ways to arrange it, because if you're getting a service from a tour agent, you have to pay for his time. It's only logical. And if I can get an offer that allows me not pay for that time because I'm on a strict budget, then I think whoever should not be denied the opportunity of, you know, patronizing other services that does not involve the travel agencies. So I've got my pros, multiple days, multiple parks, tour agency, same park several days, and you've got a ride. You can do it by yourself. So it is really up to you what you prefer. At the end of the day, you might be someone that says, I don't want to think about all of that. I want to get someone to do it. There's so many tour agencies here that are ready and willing to do it for you. If you want to do it for yourself, those are the things you have to keep in mind. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Across All Borders Going East. Thank you very much for watching. Yours truly, Lisa 81.
Germany.